can see you. There you are.
No, there's me.
Well, in fact, yes. I can see you. There's you.
It me.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, my hands are a bit sore.
All right.
The knitting just has been the most joy. I'm having so much fun knitting with your yarn. The enthusiasm's been very palpable, and I think enthusiasm is so kind of infectious when people are really excited about something. And I just feel like on all the John Arbon Textiles channels, it's just been like Mill Open Weekend, and it just makes you want to join in. So
yeah. Good. Oh, nice. Well, without further ado, let's let the rabble in.
Here they come. I see the screen filling up. There's Muriel and Nolwenn. Hi.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Everybody's coming in the room.
Hello. Super nice to see you.
Hi, Felix.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, hope everyone's having a nice chill Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Morning. Morning.
While everyone's coming in, would a couple people like to shout out where they're coming in from, or if it's even morning for you, maybe it's kind of afternoon where you are?
Where can I see that?
It's 5 a.m. here in Canada. Good morning.
Morning.
Hi.
I'm in Edinburgh.
It's
7
o'clock
Sunday night here.
Yes, Sunday night here and 1 o'clock in Melbourne.
Amazing.
Yep.
Well,
Hi.
Australian.
Hi, Sue.
Hello, Sue Granfield.
Hi.
I mean, the international kind of aspect
There's
of
a voice
the
on
knitting community is just incredible, isn't it?
Morning.
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 From the Netherlands.
Uncle's here.
Brenda. Little Brenda would usually be, if it was a more traditional open weekend, we usually set up a marquee just outside in the car park, and she'd be here with us, spinning away, being plied with cups of tea.
She's spinning.
Perfect. Well, it looks like we've got a healthy fab number of folks, and it's great to see people are using the chat already. So I just want to kind of, quickly say thanks for coming to our open weekend. It's such a treat to see you all. And really, then I'm just, because it's the third day now, so getting tired of hearing the sound of my own voice. So without further ado, I'll just hand it over to Felix, because, I mean, we all want to hear what she's got to say. You are definitely, I think, a master of colour work, Felix.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but
one of the things I love about it is you don't worry about any of the rules of like, this is how it specifically needs to be. And I think some people can find colour work quite intimidating because it's got such a long history and there are all these like supposed rules. And I love that your approach is like, whatever, ignore it or pay attention to it, just like do what feels right for you. And I think that's a fab approach to take. So yeah, welcome.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's a, you know, when I first started doing stranded colour work, I suppose I have been through a long phase of looking at very specific textile traditions. So like looking at Estonian textiles and looking at Shetland textiles and looking at textiles from the Lake District and looking at these very emplaced textiles that have such a strong relationship to where they're from. And I was like, I was born in Croydon. I spent 7 years living in Ireland. I now live in Reading. I don't know where home is, like many of us who have very itinerant kind of lives. And I was like, I don't feel like I want to use someone else's textile tradition, but I can see how I could use colour and pattern to make a sort of visual language that feels like mine, and hopefully share the tools to do that with other knitters. So yeah, that's what I'm all about. And I've published 2 books. The playbook is the second one and the source book is the first one, and they're just all about turning everyday inspirations into stranded colour work. And I suppose the more I've worked with colours, the more obviously I've got to know all these different yarn ranges that give you possibilities, creative possibilities as a knitter. And the Knit by Numbers yarn range is just amazing because of the unique way that it's made. And at the minute I'm working on a big project for KnitStars, and I'm using your yarn, and I just thought it would be, for the open weekend, it would be really amazing to talk about the Knit by Numbers yarn range, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I'm making with it, and my one of the designs I made with your yarn, which is the Polkamania Cowl.
Oh yeah.
I thought we could start by just
blue one.
Ours is not
I'm
about
looking around for it.
ours is
looking around for the Polkamania.
Everything's gone upside down around here. So.
I think one of the things that's really interesting is this yarn range has been around for quite a while. Like,
Yeah.
when did you first launch it?
God, must have been over 10 years ago, I think. But it's grown, so it kept getting added to. So, I mean, you only had about 6 sort of colour ways to start with. So that was 36 colours in total. At the time, I thought, that's loads, but it was nowhere near. In my head, you know, there was 400, and we're still not there yet. So, you know, I just always saw a Pantone shape book. That was my inspiration. And then giving it numbers, and then Knit by Numbers from, so obviously paint by numbers. Yeah, so,
fun.
yeah, well, I do, yeah. So, I mean, all the concept and idea was bubbling in my head before I actually did it. So I'd had the idea for ages. And we went to, what show was it? It was one in London, I can't remember what it was called. And Woolmice were there, and they'd got some sort of gradient thing going on, but it was all sort of hand dyed. And I went, look, they're doing it. I've got to do it now. So then that was it. I just bit the bullet and started doing it. And just went from merino, and yeah, it went on from there, really.
And it's really interesting because it's a merino wool, but it's not superwash, so it has that softness, but it also has the woolliness.
Yeah, I mean, they superwash a lot of merino to stop the tips peeling. Well, it doesn't really peel. It's sort of, they felt the tips, and then it bobbles on the end, but when you sort of shear it off, that's it. It's gone. So that, yeah, I don't like messing with fibre when you don't have to, really. That's the nature of the beast. Leave it as it is. Don't monkey with it. And you start changing, you change the luster, and you change the handle of it, and you sort of denature the thing. You know, it's not, and it's another chemical process that I shouldn't be there, really. You know, leave it in its natural state.
Yeah, and I have a little swatch here. Where have I put it? And I blocked it, and I was just amazed at how, like, it's so, all the spring and the crimp and the life in the merino wool is there. And I think I maybe had a slightly false impression of merino because I'd only ever knit with superwash.
Yeah.
So I really love that you've got that. It still retains the sheepiness.
Yeah.
A little bit. But I wondered, I don't know if everybody who's in here knows how Knit by Numbers is made, because it has a really, like, to me, fascinating, from a colour perspective, they're all blended rather than dyed to the different gradients.
Grab a little gradient.
Yeah, grab a gradient. We have a solid base, so like we'll start with, what colour are you getting there, Sonia?
I'm getting 2.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So we start with purple. So we start with a solid purple top. And then we've got the pure white merino. Everything with our system is done in 6s or 12s. So that's just the nature of spinning. Everything's done in dozens and half dozens. It's sort of peculiar to that. So all machines are set up with 6 feeds or 12 feeds or 24. So we feed in 6 ends of top, and we start with 6 full ends, say, of purple. And then we substitute 1 out and put a white in. So you've got 5 and 1. Then you go 4 and 2. You go 3 and 3. Obviously, you go 5 and 1. And so you're fading the colour down as you go. So you get this lovely organised gradient. going through, which is repeatable again and again and again and again. So it's easier to control than if you had to dye that into different shades. You just couldn't. Well, you could do it, but it's really difficult
It
to
would be
control.
hard to get that.
So our control was really consistent and really reliable. So we were able to get that fade, you know, going all the way through.
The thing I think is amazing is quite often when you're like looking at the yarn, especially if the light's not so good, like it's a bit tricky holding up on the camera here. But the thing that's incredible is often it's actually quite hard, especially in the middle, to tell the difference between the two colors. But then when you take that one color out, it's a really drastic change. So your eye kind of like almost, because it's such a subtle gradient, if you use all 6, your eye almost kind of blends it and it does like a bit of an optical illusion.
Yeah.
But because it's scientific, so I think that's the thing that would make it hard to do any other way.
Yeah,
is
formula.
actually it's sort of because the way that your eye perceives color, it does something funny in your brain, but it does actually work with the yarn.
You get that lovely melange color effect in it as well, so it's never a solid looking color. So that, you know, if it was just dyed, it would look very solid. Ours don't, and look tonal. So which is great.
No, they are really tonal, and I love the fact that the white, like from a sort of thinking about it from a paint mixing point of view, I love the fact that the white has a character to it, and it is like a color in common across the entire range. So all the colors have an affinity with each other because they share that, like apart from the super saturated, like the darkest top, everything else has like this the white is kind of like a thing that creates affinity across the whole range. But sorry,
like the 5th one down, you could go all the way through the range with the 5th one down, and you get that lovely tone, different colours. But they're all sort of got a theme running
like
through
watercolors or really delicate pastels.
So
got Dominique in the chat is saying that that's how she blends colors before she spins. So that's one of the amazing things about hand spinning, I think, is it really offers up opportunity to, just like we do on our machines, to create your own colors and really explore like that.
I love that because I think it's also, I love the fact that you offer the tops, because it does allow the possibility to just completely understand the yarn from if you want to spin the tops. Although I don't think, do you offer the knit by numbers as tops? Yeah.
For all the solid ones,
the solids, but then you could mathematically get some plain white and blend it, and like on a very small scale do the same thing to understand.
There was someone on social media, and I can't remember which platform it was, but I'll never forget it. They actually divided it into 12 instead of 6. So they created a gradient. So that's the magic of hand spinning, is you can just, I mean, there's no limit to it, you know. So they actually took that gradient even further.
That'd be a really subtle fade.
But then if you've got that in your head and you want it to be like a really invisible transition, because once it's been worked up the yarn, I find the color change is actually more noticeable again than it is in the skein.
Someone was just asking in the chat, is number 55 the white in all the other? Daphne was asking, is number 55 the white in all the other numbers?
This is my Zoom.
Is that the blended white?
Yeah,
it's the same white.
Yeah, so 55 is like, that's the same white that's going everywhere else.
I think number 55, John. It seems a bit arbitrary.
So we've got to 54, and I went, I haven't given white a number.
And what's the system? I mean, with the numbers, do you just add more numbers when you make more colours?
There is no system. We just add more numbers.
It's stuck with me going, oh yeah.
But then there's a couple of secret colours in there, like fawn and lavender, that were actually too pale to make gradients with, but they still have 6 numbers. That's why you'll notice that the numbers really skip ahead, and that's because there's some that
range.
brown is a 4.
I know,
That's
it
the
comes out
whole
so. I
point.
know. I know. But you can cross blend the bases, the solid ones, which we do with the till, to create another colour and then put the white in. So it's just, do you see what I mean? We can mix the bases together to create other things. It is like mixing paint.
So you've got like a kind of, you can create a base saturated color as long as that first thing is totally saturated, and then you just keep adding white to it.
Yeah, we can take the yellow and make it more red shade, and then plonk white through it and come up with a gradient. Or take the yellow, make it more green shade and do the same thing, you know? So we can go anyway down that colour spectrum, which is brilliant.
I am mega excited about these new, you've made these new ones that are
dark ones, dark side.
Yeah.
Somebody suggested it on I think it was on Instagram.
Yeah, lots of people did.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing. There's 2 of them. Ooh.
So what are we looking at here? If I look at my shade card, what have you started with?
Red.
With red, just the amazing red.
Black in it, as opposed to white. So doing the reverse, you're adding black rather than white.
And is this going to be a permanent addition to the range, or is this like a special for the mill open weekend?
Go on then.
It's a special. It's a special. It would be amazing though, one day, and you could give them all minus numbers.
You could, yeah.
Just minus whatever it was. But in all honesty, that would take. I mean, how long is it taking you? You said it's taken you 10 years to build up the knit by numbers range. So if it was something we decided to start tickling away on, it would take a very long time to do it.
It's sort of spinning time and stock and storage, you know, you've got to store all this yarn.
Yeah.
You have to make a quantity of it, so you're holding an awful lot of stock.
Yeah.
And not actually selling anything, so cost-wise, sort of cash flow-wise,
it's a tricky thing.
Quite scary.
Especially in the DK and the Ford.
Merino's not cheap these days, it's Falklands merino as well. It's a really high-quality organic merino, so
it's something that I think about a lot, is the logistics of like offering a very large color range is really complicated because of all of those issues. Like if you've got them all, you have to make a lot to make it cost effective, and then you end up with bits like that just are not popular because of the way that colors seem to kind of run in trends. And it's just kind of, it's interesting, that the dilemma of like, how do you match supply and demand with a very large range that's very expensive to make and store, with the no guarantee that they'll all be popular. But then at the same time, the kind of whole point of the range is it's all the colors all the time. It's like a tricky logistics thing.
The fast moving colors, we're always making more stock, so obviously as they sell, then we make a quantity. If it's faster moving color, then we'll make more of that particular one, and then when the other ones sell out, you just make a smaller amount that don't sell so quickly. But the thing is, you have to have those colors that don't sell to sell the other ones. So if it's not there in the range becomes irrelevant.
And they do move round, don't they?
They do.
We sell a lot more. I don't know, Helena would know really, because she looks after all the stock these days. But we probably, like maybe bottle green or something, we sell a lot more of that than we used to. And then maybe we sell like less pink than it just all seems to change.
I think there's a certain yellow that doesn't go. Juliet was going the other day, I found a dash, it said 2017 on it. I went,
is it this one?
It's weirdly one of the ones in the middle though, and then all the others sell. It's like one specific.
Yellows are so close, so that adding white doesn't really spread it out, I suppose. So then there's one specific yellow that everyone goes for, not the other one. So it just happens that way.
How interesting! So you just got like one of these middly yellows just sits.
Yeah, just poor little yellow gets left out.
I think that is one thing that's fascinating about it, and really Helena would know much more. But it's like there's psychology of like you think with all those colors people would pick different ones, but actually Helena can reel off like the 20 most popular colors, and quite a lot of them are like weirdly like right in the middle of a color range, and then none of the rest of them in that color range are popular or something. So somehow everyone has this like collective hive mind of like zoning in on particular shades.
Well, I think the really saturated brights, like, I wonder if it's a thing that, because like a lot of us are like, I don't know if I would wear something that's that bright, and so maybe that accounts for people going to the middle of the ranges. And it was something I wanted to ask you is, have you noticed that people more use the range to like pick, I want the exact perfect shade of this color for this project that I'm going to do in a single color, or kind of coming to it like, I want to do something really exciting that uses that gradient potential across the range?
You can answer that one.
It depends, I guess. People really like it. Shows quite a lot of the
shows
time.
You find that out. Because
you
if
really
they just award it, you don't know one.
Yeah, exactly.
So they'll come up and they have a project in mind, and they're either doing a gradient or looking for a specific colour.
Yeah.
And then that's where especially doing colour work, where the minis come in.
Yeah.
You just use 25 grams
for
and
sure.
you don't have to buy 100 grams.
But quite often it shows people will come along with like a little swatch of fabric, and they want to put together like a full outfit, or we get quite a lot of people who are making a specific thing that they've got in their head, and they will be like, I need a match for this thing. And then it's really useful. But then sometimes people, so I guess it's just people have all different ways of being creative. And, you know, I would say it's a real mixture of both. It just depends on someone's individual like approach to their craft, you know, because you do get all sorts of search shows, don't you?
You do get people tipping up and going, oh, you've got that shade of blue. I've been looking for that shade of blue in everybody's range, or that shade of red, and I can't find it. You've got it. Yeah. So that sort of thing, it definitely works.
And then some people spend ages poring over all the colours and finding
just
the right combo, don't they? So it really does depend.
You see some amazing combos being clutched at the show, you know.
We've got
little collections of mini skeins. I have to say, for me, the reason I ended up designing Polkamania was I've made a cowl that is based on the brickwork of Reading. And I thought it would be really interesting to knit it in a different yarn just to see what it looks like. And I'm going to switch to this other camera. So I bought, thinking, I could recreate the bricks cowl in Knit by Numbers. This is all that's left over after knitting the cowl, but it's quite handy to be able to show. I got these oranges. So I got these, and thinking I'd just recreate the bricks cowl, and like, oh wow, there'll be like loads of it'll be really interesting to just see what it looks like in another yarn. But then I just got so fascinated by the possibilities of working with the whole range, and I just kept looking at this little sequence of oranges and greys and thinking that is so exciting, because and I wanted to then not do the bricks at all. I wanted to find a way of exploring the dark to light in the two colours. And I thought, wouldn't it be good to just find a very simple pattern that will enable me to match in pattern and background all the like together dark to light, and then flip it round and do one to do like the pattern in the light, but then the background in the dark, and to show those two kind of different but related ways of working with a gradient. Because in color work, you've always got the option to have the dark and the light in the pattern and the background either moving together or in opposition to each other. And I just, once I had that idea, I was like, right, we're not doing the brick cowl, we're going to do this something completely different. So this is the result.
Yeah.
And what I really liked about it, I didn't do any swatching or anything, because I was like, right, I just need a system to do this. I need to work out how many stitches around it's going to be. And you can see here that I've got like the darkest colours are together with each other. So we've got like darkest grey with darkest orange. And then it moves to like then the next shade up, so it's a little bit lighter in both of them, then a little bit lighter again. And there's some really surprising stuff, like the two lightest colors together. I thought you won't be able to see that, but you can. And I really love the fact that, again, that I started to see what a quality the white brings to things, because it's so warm. That warm, sheepy, natural merino white just kind of brings, I don't know, there's something so lovely about. I was surprised that's one of my favorite bits of the cowl. And it continues. And then now we've got the opposite. So we've got the darkest orange with the lightest grey. And so one side of the cowl is like showing you dark and light together, and the other is showing you dark and light moving in opposite directions. And it's a really meditative thing to knit. And it works because all the colours go together. You can see they all go together. And it's really soft to wear. And I got really interested then in what else can I do with this yarn which exploits this range, and also what other projects can I come up with which will act like a vessel to let me play with colour and explore colour, which is how we got to me using your yarn for KnitStars.
It looks like you've got some amazing knitwear back there as well.
This one
satisfying my curiosity. Yeah, can you show us that? It looks gorgeous.
Again, I'm just so obsessed with the colours. This is from the playbook, and it's a massive floral shawl, because I realise people often would come to my workshops and say, I want to knit flowers, but flowers are really they have a lot of colours in them, and if you make a little floral motif, that you've only got so many stitches that you can fill in with colour. So I thought, well, if you make a massive canvas, like a huge pattern that will let you explore lots of colours, then you can find all the colours that are in the flower and just sequence them through the giant canvas of the knitting. And with this one, I was just obsessed with dandelions, and I was obsessed with how do you get from the grey white colour when the dandelion is when it's like a clock and you blow the seeds, how do I get from that to like the bright luminous spring flower that's like super bright and yellow? So Tom of Holland knit this sample, and there's one behind me that's based on cherry blossoms, which is the exact same. It's the same principle, but with cherry blossoms instead.
Nice.
Cool.
And all those
All
different
they are, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a great way of working the colour through.
just have a massive tall shawl so that you can do loads of colours. And similarly for KnitStars, I am making a massive tall cowl again.
We've got a lot of love for that shawl in the chat.
For KnitStars, yeah. So with KnitStars, what I thought I'd do is I wanted to, similar to with the Polkamania Cowl, I wanted to create like a vessel that would, like a container, that would let people do lots of experimenting, but it'll work and it'll look good and you can wear it at the end. And also, through lockdown, I was teaching my 6-year-old niece. We were doing like art lessons on Zoom, and I was just horrified how even in 2021, it's like, or 2020 rather, she was like, she just didn't know any woman artists. And so I was like, right, I'm going to make a cowl. Each section is going to celebrate a different woman artist in the pattern, and I need to find a system for making a palette which will give knitters like loads of opportunities to play with colour. So I don't know what I can show you. The cowl is not finished, I'm still working on the cowl, but I can show you where I'm at so far without dropping my stitches. So I started here, and one of the first things is all the sections are the same height, so that helps to kind of create a sense of uniformity, like this is all one project. So yeah, I started here, and then you can see all these different ideas going through.
Lovely.
Sound waves.
I was going to say sound waves.
Yeah, it is. It's based on a CD by Wendy Carlos called Sonic Seasonings, and you can see
Right.
I've sort of taken some of the colours from the album cover. But this is a really interesting album because Wendy Carlos was combining a lot of digital she was using a synthesizer, but then mixing it with field recordings to describe the seasons. And I thought, what an amazing mixture of analog and digital, and how cool to take like the digital interface of sound, the waveform that you see when you're editing digital sound files, and do it in the most analog medium of knitting.
I love how you combine music and fibre and yarn together.
I think I probably met you first because I was trying to record the sounds of your mill.
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
Probably the starting point.
that was with Kate, wasn't it? Kate Davis. Or was that a separate time when you come and did a photo assignment down there?
So Kate was writing a piece for, I think it might have been for
Vogue
Rowan or Selvage or Vogue.
I can't remember which one it was.
It's 2008. It was ages ago. Yeah. And we came to Cold Harbour Mill, and you were in the basement repairing all the machines.
That's right.
And I was just going around with my little recorder, recording all the
from behind the machine. Like, can we ask you some questions? Can I record some stuff? Can we take some pictures?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So,
or some sort of crazy bloke in the basement.
No, it was amazing because you were so you had all these bits of machinery around you, and you were so kind of at home there, repairing and building and making things work and testing things. And I just was like, this, I don't know, it just immediately spoke to me. I love trying to understand how the world works, and I just think that's working with machines is another way to do that. It's like it's a tinkerer, a maker.
We've had a couple quick questions in the chat. I definitely spotted one in there, and that was, did you use mini skeins for the Polkamania Cowl?
Yes, and that's why I've got just such tiny pieces left. It's like I used exactly 12 mini skeins. There was one that had there's one that I really have that much left of. Right. So it's pretty thrifty because you will just about squeeze out the whole cowl from 12 mini skeins, but it will let you completely explore the whole gradient of 2 colours.
Which is so nice, because then it's probably also really useful for like future color work projects. If you're making something, you can decide whether you want like colors that are similar in like light to dark tonal, or that are like different. So you can then kind of get that cowl out. It's sort of like a sampler as well, isn't it, really? And then just be like, okay, I want 2 colors that are really pale, or 2 that are dark, or 2 that are really different from each other. Yeah,
and it's just like a sampler, but you can wear it as well. So it's sort of like, I've realized that not everybody in the knitting world shares my intense passion for swatching. so it's kind of nice to come up with projects that provide a structure for experimenting and playing, but at the same time, you know, you can wear it at the end. It will be useful and warm at the end.
Okay, great. And then I think all the other things, I just saw lots of things coming in on the chat, but the rest of it is just a whole lot of love. So I think that was the only question we had.
So with the palettes, what I was really thinking about was like, so if you go, like if I say to you, go to the shop and buy dinner, that's the same as if you say, you know, go and pick some colors for a project. Like, it's just not helpful at all. Whereas if I say to you, you know, go and find some ingredients to make a salad, and maybe we'll start with some avocado, and you know, and we should have something else in there, maybe like some lemon, then you've kind of got like a starting point. And I always use an organizing principle, because colors, especially like a range like yours, can be just so overwhelming. And the fear of like, I'm going to pick the wrong color. So for my organizing principle for this project, because I was thinking about women artists, I just chose a number of like different works. So I so thoroughly recommend art books. I think we should all just have more art books.
Definitely.
For just ongoing pictorial inspiration.
It sort of helps you focus where you want to go colour-wise, doesn't it? Because you
exactly, and it's a sort of that organising principle.
Look at a wall of colour and go, oh, but if you actually got something to focus on and then work from that.
And it gives you confidence as well, because if you can see in the thing that you're using as an organising principle, look, they've made it work, then you know there's a way that I can make it work. And hopefully we can all see Georgia O'Keeffe.
Yeah.
Big Georgia O'Keeffe painting. Oh, and it looks super dark in the video.
That's all right.
And what I do is, so I thought, okay, with these palettes, I want to do a few things. I want to offer possibilities for high contrast work, for very subtle blending, and I want to use the range. So I didn't want to just kind of you know, oh, I'll have a green from here and I'll have like a I don't know, like a pink from here, and like I didn't want to do it in a haphazard way. I wanted to use the range.
Right.
And then I also wanted to keep it slightly in budget, so not have like, you know, all 6 colors in like, or the whole gradient in like 6 colors, because then the kit is like 36 skeins and it just starts to become a bit ridiculous. So this is what I came up with for Georgia. And so you can see, I thought, right, we need some warmth that will speak to these kind of hot pinks that are here.
Yeah.
We need some very light colours that will speak to the lights here. And we need something that will enable us to kind of, like, if we look at that lovely gradient through from a very light to a kind of mid-green.
Yeah.
And the thing is, also I was thinking about what do knitters like. And I know lots of knitters are big fans of jewel tones. So I kind of specifically was thinking, I want to keep this generally quite like cool and purpley and bluey, but you need some heat in there to activate it. And you can see that in her painting, that these hot kind of green colours and these hot pinks activate the whole thing. So we need the balance in it. And I'm very excited to show you. This is the first time these have been shown anywhere, but I made pins that go with these kits. So this is like an enamel pin that's inspired by the yarns, that's inspired by the painting. And I don't know if there's any other yarn ranges that have got like an enamel pin, but this is one. And
you've got a pin for every artist.
Yeah. So that's the Georgia O'Keeffe one. Isn't it amazing?
I didn't know you'd done one for every
I
artist.
hope you've got some spares for some of us, Felix.
I'm gonna it will need to be arranged, because the mill definitely needs to have the pins. And I know it's gonna, if the chat suddenly erupts with this, these are exclusive to KnitStars.
Ones. I didn't know you'd done one for every one.
For each of the 3. Aren't they beautiful?
That's so cool.
So once I had this kind of principle down of like, and I was also thinking a lot about with these colours, you have to be really mindful of the fact that if you go to the middle of the range, then you are not going to end up like, if everything is in the middle of the range, you won't be able to get any contrast. It'll be difficult at times to get the pattern to stand out from the background, and it just won't give you the kind of flexibility. So you'll notice I've taken like I haven't gone in any of them like the darkest one, then just the next one, then just the next one. Like I've made more jumps than that between them, just to give you flexibility for different effects, because I think otherwise it can end up flattening itself out quickly.
You saw because of darkest, mid, and then lightest, didn't you? Almost
kind of. And it's not the thing it was interesting hearing you talking about the yellows earlier, because the yellows I slightly struggled with.
Yeah, that's why you jumped to white, isn't it?
Yeah, because they're not that different from each other.
Yeah.
So Alma Thomas, this is the colourway that I'm using for the sample that I'm making up. Alma Thomas, super amazing artist, and she's an African-American artist, and she's an abstract painter, and she just had this really incredible way, I think a very knitterly way, of recording the world in these kind of very distinctive mark making patterns. So she would look at things around her and she would find these specific colors in them, and then she would record the colors that she could see in these very distinctive kind of stripes, which became known in the abstract painting world as the Alma stripe. And I just think that's so knitterly, because it's so close to what we do when we look at inspiration and then we try and organize it into stripes. So I was her, and this is where I struggled with the yellows, because she uses a lot of yellow.
Right.
And I ended up with this and trying to get some distinction between those yellows.
Yeah.
It's because the pale is...
It's a very red shade yellow we use, so we need like a green shade yellow as well within that to give it more contrast, but then they fade into each other anyway.
Oh, I've lost my little bit of intense red. But there's her little...
Wow.
That was so fun. I love it. It's all those primary colours and then the little pop of green.
I want a set.
Is so nice.
I'll pay you good money for a set of badges.
Oh, little Alma Thomas. But you can kind of see in the badge the logic that I've used to put together the palette. Like I've sort of gone, I want like a cool kind of bluey colour, which in this one is blue, but then in Georgia is purple.
Yeah.
But it still acts as that cool dark colour. Then I want like, this is a very warm palette because the red and the yellow and the green are all quite warm, but you can see that I've kind of kept it in groups of 4 different colours and then got a lot of contrast across the range of each one, because I thought that is going to give me the best flexibility for developing loads of stranded colour work patterns. And I think that's a really transferable, like if you want to play with stranded colour work but you don't know what you're going to knit yet, then it's quite good to have that as a principle. Like pick 12 colours and look at the, like make sure you've got a light, a medium, a dark of all of them, and that will give you enough to play with. Because I think sometimes we don't start because we're frightened it's going to go wrong, but I think
that definitely happens with knit by numbers sometimes. I think it can be quite overwhelming trying to pick a colour palette. So
I think some principles, just like we were talking about the shopping list, which is the correct thing to bring up when we're looking at Bobby Baker, amazing British artist who works with the everyday in a really amazing way. And this was the picture I used as the inspiration to put together the palette inspired by her. And there she is just preparing to throw a pear very violently against a wall. This is from her performance kitchen piece, which is a whole series of like actions that she performs in her kitchen. And she speaks to themes of domesticity and feminism and the undervalued labour that sustains us all. She really elevates that in her work. And I was looking at the sort of the colours of like the cupboards and the little enamelware that she's got there. And also I thought, not all knitters want to knit the super saturated bright primaries. So this is kind of a nice way to allocate a palette, which still has a lot of range of colours, but the whole thing is altogether just a bit softer and more muted. So that's kind of, and when I'm putting a palette together, I'm just seeing, I'm going to do 2 more things and then we can open for questions. But what I do is I get like a blank bit of card, and then I hope I haven't lost him. I don't know where I've put my stapler or my hole punch, and I just make holes. And this is the genius thing about your shade cards, is to remove the distraction of like everything that's around it. I just untie the bit that I want to test, put it in here until I can see this is going to work as a whole palette. Do you see what I mean? So I take
that's a very good tip. So you just take out the ones you think might be good, but
and I just kept working with it until I was like, right, I've got the 4 colours that I want. I've got them in a nice collection of different intensities, and and I can see that I like how they look together, and I can hold that next to my inspiration source and be like, I can see the relationship. And it doesn't have to be completely, you know, we're not going for a photorealistic representation of the thing. It's like a Venn diagram of practicality. How many colors do we want in this palette? Looks like the inspiration source. And then the third thing, which is like, make sure there's enough contrast, because otherwise you're going to do all this beautiful knitting, but the different ideas won't stand out. And you can see the palette really going to work in this, because you can see I've got sections like that's a slightly lower contrast section, and they still stand out. You can still see the patterns. This is like a super high contrast section based on Yayoi Kusama. This is quite a subtle section based on an artist called Jetta Bratescu. And then this is like more fadey and kind of like blended transitions between colors, whereas this is more like a blob of yellow, a blob of pink, a blob of white. And then this again, this is like this is more kind of where I've been exploring more the kind of darks and lights and the fades and transitions between them. And this is very kind of fadey between different things. So you can get all these different effects, but you can see, because you're just sticking to one palette all the way through, you can see this is going to work as a thing at the end.
Yeah.
And depending on what you wear, you just decide, well, I really want this bit. Alma Thomas. I want Alma Thomas right next to my face, and then we'll tackle the rest.
Brilliant.
But I love that they're all based. You've got I knew
artist with your outfit.
Yeah, exactly. I knew you were gonna base all the color palettes around artists, but I hadn't realized that then you'd have little blocks of color work that were also. So I love how many different inspirations. So I'm sure it'll probably take people, you know, a good couple days to knit one block, and then they can be acquainting themselves with that artist while you're doing it. So it really is like, you know, it's not just a knitting lesson, it's also an art history lesson.
Yeah, that's
which
yes. And that's why I've called it Think Like an Artist, because I was just thinking about how everything I do and everything I make stands on the shoulders of like the makers who have come before me. And it's so nice to kind of think about all the different creative strategies that I've learned. So this is Daphne Oram. Are you aware of Daphne Oram?
I'm not.
No.
She's a pioneer of drawn sound, and
I want to know more then.
she's a pioneer of drawn sound, and she basically invented a synthesizer before there was a synthesizer. And I hope I can find it. And I'm sorry, because I know I need to stop, but now we've started talking about color and artists, and I'm just so overexcited.
You're gonna have to send me some of these links for these people with music and design.
So there she is working with her. She's working with her synthesizer, and she's drawing the sounds. So she worked out a system to draw sound onto cinematic, like blank cinema film.
Yeah.
And then each shape controls a different parameter. So it runs through some sort of light thing that that transmits light through the thing, and then somehow what she's drawn modulates a different sound parameter, so volume or pitch or rhythm or tempo. And I just think she's amazing. She built a synthesizer before there was a synthesizer, and it's in the Science Museum, and it's called the Oramics machine, and it's just made from all this like bits of it are in domestic cupboards and bits of furniture, and it's all old valves and bulbs. And I just love the mix of, it's like this woman's furniture from her house, and this homemade thing, but then inside it is this like mind-blowing electronics brilliance.
What's it sound like?
Really kind of like, when I was knitting it yesterday, my husband Mark was just looking over at me and going, ooh. because it does have, like, it's a very sealed electronic sound, and you just get these little like sine waves. And there used to be an app that you could get, and I made a podcast about how she worked with sound, but it's quite an otherworldly sound. And she did a lot of soundtracks for kind of horror movies and stuff, because those early electronic sounds sound so not of this world.
Yeah,
It's brilliant for describing.
Delia Derbyshire, then, is she?
Yeah, so Daphne Oram was in the BBC Radiophonics workshop. She kind of was there first, and then she hated the lack of credit that they gave to artists there, and she branched out on her own. She bought an oast house in Kent, raised goats, and made sounds. And Delia Derbyshire took up her place in the BBC Radiophonic workshop.
Delia Derbyshire replaced.
Vanessa's just said in the chat that she created the original Doctor Who theme.
Yeah, Delia Derbyshire did the original Doctor Who theme.
Which is the best thing about the TV show, in my opinion. It's so good, that theme song. Not that the TV show isn't good, but
the original one though is so good. The original one that Delia Derbyshire made. And the thing that I love about both her and Daphne Oram, I mean, Daphne Oram I love because she invented a way of seeing sound and drawing sound, which is just amazing. But she also, both of them, in their pioneering early work with recording sounds and using objects and recordings of objects to then create music, it gives you a different way of listening to and appreciating the world. There's a lamp that's like it's a metal lamp, it's green, and it just kind of comes down and it has like a round, like just a big metal round lamp. And Delia Derbyshire got so many sounds from that, like just from dinging it and kind of rubbing a cloth around the edge. And you can, once you've heard those sounds that have been pulled out of that object, the object seems magical because yes, it's just a lamp, but it's also got a secret sonic life. With Jetta Bratescu, she did this amazing book, there's a book about it, but she did this amazing art project, which is all about sequence images. So they're all paper cutout images like this, where she's taken a few basic elements, like a red thing, a black thing, a stripe, a triangle, and she's kind of she's configured it in different ways. And I thought, what a brilliant concept that knitters could use. And I did an art class with my niece, so we just got bits of paper, and I did all the art lessons in my bullet journal, and she did them on her bits of paper and stuck them all on her wall, which is very cute. But like with this, I was like, okay, we need a bit of red paper with a heart on it, a bit of spotty paper, a bit of yellow paper, and just like what happens when you take some sort of similar elements and then recombine them. And that's exactly what I've done in a more downplayed way with this section of the cowl. So it's quite subtle, but you can kind of hopefully see that there's, for every bit of it, there's like a little pink shape, there's a yellow triangle, and then there's a yellow dot and a white dot, which has been duplicate stitched on afterwards. And it all sort of works together, and it's quite subtle. But when you look at the chart, you can see, all those little bits have been slightly moved around. And you could go more outlandish with that if you wanted to, but I just wanted to see what happens if you just take that idea. And so that started in my bullet journal art lesson with my niece.
Aww.
And I think that's the sort of thing where with this cowl, there's loads of things like that where I did something months ago and thought, and like with Polkamania and Yayoi Kusama, when I was doing that pattern in my bullet journal, I was thinking about Yayoi Kusama and her amazing obliteration room. So she uses dots in this really amazing way, and she puts dots, like she has this piece which is it's a totally blank white room with piles of dot stickers, and as people go into that room and place the dot stickers on the furniture, on the walls, on everything, it obliterates the space and just completely turns it into something else. So every time I worked on the cowl, I put another dot in my journal to kind of mark that and I never managed to obliterate the space.
You need a longer cowl.
Yeah.
Need a longer cowl, exactly. And so then that question of what can you do with dots, I just ended up going, what happens if you have tiny dots and then middle dots and then big dots? So, and she's so interesting because everything she does, you sort of instantly recognize it, but she she's got this one theme and she just keeps going with it. And what can you do with dots? You can do so many things with dots.
I've loved talking to you about it all and hearing about it. So maybe we can do it again for people in a couple of months as well.
Your KnitStars class is going to be amazing. Everybody signed up for that. We're just going to, you're going to see a different colour world, aren't you?
I think it is shut now, the sign-ups, but they will open up again at some point, won't they?
So they open up in kind of, I think it's like September or October. It's the main round of sign-ups happens then. So the early bird window was open briefly and now is shut, but it opens again in September.
So maybe we can have another chat around that time as well then. That would be super fab. I think we've got time for one more question as well, which is, I noticed someone in the chat and I'd like to know the answer, saying, will all of this exploration with female artists turn into a book at some point? Maybe.
Well, it's not something it's not at the front of my mind at the moment, but I did send an email to KnitStars saying, I hope you don't need the handout for this class until October, because it's going to be a whole thing. So I know that by the time, like, maybe when I look at it at the end, I'll be like, okay, this needs to become a book. But for 1 year anyway, it will be exclusive to KnitStars. So if there is going to be a book, it won't be until that exclusivity ends.
Okay, we'll hold you to that then. There's a book coming.
I know lots of people aren't sure what KnitStars is as well. So for those people, it is it's a series of courses, is it? It's sort of like
it's like an online symposium or conference of knitting classes, and you own the classes forever, and it's all there's 12 or 13, I can't remember, tutors per season, and there's a theme per season, and each class is like about 2 hours long, and it's kind of like it's like an online summit that happens every year, and they curate knitting tutors around a theme, and it's really high quality filming. And it started because Shelley Brander, the founder, has a background in media and TV production, and then she was running a local yarn store, and kind of, as people have seen through the pandemic, putting things online makes them much more accessible to people all around the world. Like, I can't teach in America because I don't have a visa to teach in America, and it's the kind of spoons and resources involved in that physical travel, and then all the bureaucratic hurdles just make it impossible. But if I have an online class, then I can reach those other kind of audiences, and the same for, you know, all the amazing kind of, she just thought, let's join the world together through like an online knitting thing, and it's been going, I think, for either 5 or 6 years. So and because last year I was creating my own online classes, and I really love online teaching. I think it's actually easier to show things sometimes on a screen than it is in a classroom. If you've got a little bit of paper, you've got like 20 people in the room, you doing something little on a piece of paper is not as good as like it's on the screen big and everyone can see it. And just from an accessibility point of view, and making content available to everyone, just think it's really exciting. So yeah, it's and then once you buy the season of KnitStars, you have it forever, so you can go back and watch things over and over again, which I found from doing my online teaching has really been a very valuable thing for people, because sometimes you demonstrate something, and if you're under time pressure, there isn't time to kind of, can you show me that again? But if you've got a video and you're doing it in your own time, just watch it again.
Yeah.
So
that's really good. Really good.
Definitely. And we really do have to go now, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
poor Andrew is probably sitting there going, what's happening? Where are they?
We've got a fiver chat going on with Andrew in about 15 minutes, and we've got to wake him up.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I hope it goes really well, and thank you so much for having me along as part of
you. I know people have loved it. Yeah. So
great.
We all wish we could, you know, keep talking for another hour of questions.
Brilliant.
Thanks so much, everyone, for coming.
Cheers, Felix.
Grand.
Okay, thanks so much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.